on worksheet 2, number 14. Oil is leaking from a hole in a cylindrical tank. That's not a good situation. Workers notice that the oil level is decreasing at a rate of 0.02 meters per hour. 0.02 meters per hour. So what is that? And what is that as our variable? What was that? So it's a rate, so it's d something dt. But it's the level, and then you look at the units, it's meters. So it's not the volume, it's the height. So the height is changing at 0.02 meters per hour, and it's decreasing. What does that mean? Negative. Again, the negatives get people because it almost never says negative. You have to read the problem and know that decreasing means, oh, that means it's going down. So the change is negative. They measure and find that this tank has a circumference of 24 meters, which is okay. Like, I know I'm going to need the radius, so why didn't they just tell me the radius? So they're kind of just messing with me here. I'll have to figure out the radius from that. The volume of a cylinder with radius r and height h is pi r squared h. How much oil has drained from the tank in the 10 hours since the leak was noticed? Indicate units of measure. Oh, well, that's different than the problem we've done before. So in 10 hours, what's the change in height been? How much has it gone down in 10 hours if its change in height is 0.02 meters per hour? 0.2. Yeah, so 0.02 meters per hour times 10 hours. Like, when I hit a new problem or a problem I'm not sure about, I start throwing the units back in there because that will help me keep track of what I'm doing. The hours cancel. I'm left with meters. That's what I was expecting to get. So 0.2 meters is how much was lost. So I can do pi r squared h with h being this like delta h, this change of h, and that'll tell me how much was lost. I still got to figure out r though. So circumference is 2 pi r. So 24 equals 2 pi r. So r is 12 over pi. Okay, so the volume lost is pi times 12 over pi squared times that 0.2. Thank you. Indicate units of measure. So there's my answer. What will my units be? If I'm talking about volume, just meters cubed. All right, so that one, I guess that's kind of a calculus problem, but not what we're used to seeing. So in 10 hours we lost that much. Part B, at what rate is the volume of the oil in the tank decreasing? So I need to find dV dt. Indicate units of measure. Oh, I can do units of measure already. Right, meter cubed per hour. Again, if it asks for units, that means there's a point value associated with that. So I got 1 out of the 4 points already, even without really knowing what much else, because I know what the units need to be. Okay, V is pi r squared h. Let's see. If I take a derivative right now, I can do that, but I have to use the product rule, which is not that big a deal, but if I could get away from it, that'd be nice. Look at my picture. One of these variables isn't changing. What's not changing? The radius isn't changing. If it's not changing, I can plug in for the radius before I take a derivative. Again, be careful doing that. Only plug in values that aren't changing. Because if they're changing, then you need to account for their derivative. So dv dt is pi times 12 over pi squared times dh dt. So dv dt, it doesn't depend on h, it's a constant. Dv dt, let's plug in dh dt, pi 12 over pi squared, dh dt is negative 0.02, and safe stop, right? That's calculator ready, so I'm not really going to mess with that. I already have the units, meter cubed per hour. We're in math class, we're fine with this as an answer. If you're actually working on a plant somewhere and you want to know how much you're leaking, you're not going to go to your boss and tell him, well, we're leaking pi times 12 over pi squared times 0.02. He's going to be like, what? Okay, give me a number. So this is fine in a math class. Probably in a real world situation, you'd multiply it out to figure out, well, what is that? Is that a lot of oil or not a lot of oil? I don't know looking at that.
So part A, would it be times negative 0.2?
That is a great question. Does it need to be times negative 0.2? Because the way I've answered it, I said how much volume is lost. I don't need a negative on there because lost implies the negative. And the question was how much has drained, so I don't need the negative. But you're right, if I just said the change in volume, that would need to be a negative. But the way I phrased it, the lost volume, and even the question that was asked, how much oil drained, you don't have to put a negative on there. So then the next question is, well, if I put a negative on there, is it wrong? Again, it maybe, depends on how you answer the question. If you're telling me you lost a negative amount of oil, well, that means you gained oil. So be careful how you answer the question. So you're right to be concerned, and the answer is be careful how you answer the question. If it's multiple choice, we're not going to try to trick you on the negative. There's not going to be a negative and a positive answer.